4:31. Yeah, I thought it was at. Good evening, everyone. Stacy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I guess we'll call this meeting to order at 4:02. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature of now or when it comes up on the agenda. So I'm looking for approval of the agenda, and the recommended motion reads that the agenda be approved as presented. Could I have a move by Stacy and seconded by Sam? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Approval of the minutes. The recommended motion is that the minutes of April 15th, 2026 be approved. Gonna have a mover and seconder. Moved by Stacy and seconded by Sam. Were there any errors or omissions? I don't think so. So all in favor, it's carried. Thank you. And we're down to, we have 5 tonight, so we're down we'll start E1, minor variance application. I'd now like to welcome Drew Brannan, Senior Planner, to present the presentation slides and staff report. Drew,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
you're on.
I'll just share my screen here. And if someone wouldn't mind making that gesture when they can see my screen.
Oh.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So the first application tonight is D13-130-26, and the subject property is 201-203 Teskey Street. So the applicant is requesting relief from the zoning bylaw to permit alterations to an existing non-compliant driveway. So essentially taking it from one non-compliant standard to a reduced but still non-compliant standard. So specifically, they're seeking relief from section 9.3.9 sub I, or A sub I, where the zoning bylaw has a maximum width of a residential driveway of 6.5 meters or 50% of the lot frontage, whichever is less, and they are proposing a width of 11 meters. We can see the subject property outlined in blue on the screen. It's generally rectangular in area. It's approximately 1,800 square meters in size and has approximately 33 meters of frontage on both Teskey Street and Norton Street. Although this aerial does show it as being vacant, development has occurred on it as of 2024. So specifically, a semi-detached dwelling was developed with each principal unit containing 2 additional residential units. So in total, the dwelling features 6 dwelling units. It is zoned R2 and is generally surrounded by low-density residential uses. Here's an updated aerial showing the semi in practice. So as I said, there are 6 total dwelling units within the dwelling. Per the zoning bylaw, each unit requires 1 allocated parking space. So we can see here that the development has 2 driveways, one fronting onto Teskey Street and one fronting onto Norton Street. With the Teskey Street driveway providing 4 parking spaces and the Norton driveway providing 6. So a total of 10 parking spaces are being provided. So of noteworthy, both driveways were developed in deviation of approved site plan control application. And the driveway on Norton was specifically developed in contravention of the zoning bylaw. So at the time, the zoning bylaw permitted residential driveways to be 9 meters wide or 50% of the lot frontage, whichever is less. So the discrepancy there being instead of whereas we currently permit 6.5, when this was developed, 9 was permitted. So for an example here, we can see the Teskey Street driveway is in fact 9 meters wide, which was lawfully established at the time, but is also considered legal non-complying at this state, given that the standard's been reduced to 6.5. The difference being that the Norton Street driveway was developed in non-compliance at the time of development, so it didn't meet the standards when it was developed, and it still doesn't. So specifically, they developed it being 20 meters wide, providing 6 parking stalls. So essentially, the applicant is seeking relief from the current standard being 6.5 meters to accommodate 11-meter wide driveway. Based on our requirements for the dimensions of a parking space, that equates to 4 spaces side by side. So essentially, they're proposing to delete the most southern parking space on Norton Street and the most northern. So essentially being left with these 4 parking spaces. I will note that this does eliminate conflicts with existing driveways on the opposite side of Norton Street. We can see them just directly on the other side here, as well as Norton Street is defined as a local road within the transportation master plan. So it does have a lower expected volume of traffic on a daily basis. Here we can see the proposed site plan. Just a couple of things that I want to note here. Based on the revised configuration, the applicant's proposing to provide more than a 3-meter buffer towards the northern lot line. In addition, the setback between the driveway and the intersection of Norton and Teskey exceeds 7 meters, which is the minimum requirement in the zoning bylaw. In addition, given this revised configuration, the provided parking would be reduced from the 10 spaces that are currently being provided to 8, but there's an important distinction to add in there. So the zoning bylaw says that you can't provide any required parking spaces within the required front yard setback. So essentially that means that there are 6 parking spaces that are required as a minimum for this development, given that there are 6 dwelling units. Those 6 spaces cannot be provided in the front yard setback. With that being said, any parking provided in excess of that minimum can be. So we can see here that 6 are being provided outside the front yard setback. These 2 parking spaces are permitted to continue to exist. They just can't be the sole parking spaces allocated to a unit within the development. And I will just add for extra clarity that all units within this development are purpose-built rentals. As with all minor variances, staff are required to assess them based on the 4 tests in the Planning Act. Based on our assessment, we're of the opinion that the variance meets all 4 tests and are recommending approval in accordance with what's shown on the screen. And just for clarity, I will read that out for committee's benefit. That the Municipality of Mississippi Mills Committee of Adjustment approved the minor variance application affecting the subject lands, which are legally described as Lot 3 and part of Lot 4, Plan 626. Part 1 of Reference Plan 26-R1209, Elmont Ward, Municipality of Mississippi Mills, municipally known as 201-203 Teskey Street, to permit modifications to the existing non-compliant driveway fronting on Norton Street, subject to the following conditions. That the following requested minor variance to zoning bylaw number 11-83 is approved. To permit a driveway that has a width of 11 meters, whereas section 9.3.9 sub A requires that driveways in residential zones have a maximum width of 6.5 meters or 50% of the lot frontage, whichever is less, and that the owners obtain approval of a red line amendment to the existing site plan agreement to reflect the revised parking layout. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. So is there any members of the public or person want to speak on this first before I go to the committee? I don't see, I don't think anybody's registered. So any questions from the committee? I think it's
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'll just add that through our circulation, we did not receive any comments from the public, but it was also circulated to our Public Works team, who verified that they don't have any issues with the proposed width of the driveway.
Thank you, Drew. We appreciate that information. So is there a mover and seconder for the motion? Moved by Sam and seconded by Stacy. All in favor? And that one's approved. Thank you very much. So we're on the two minor variance application, 165 and 167 Adelaide Street. Once again, I'd like to welcome Drew Brannan, Senior Planner, to comment on this application. Go ahead, Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in accordance with the Act, we did circulate this application to commenting agencies just for overall clarity. What's being proposed is a semi-detached dwelling with additional residential units at the corner of Adelaide and Martin Street North. Upon doing that circulation, Ottawa River Power Corporation did provide comments just seeking more information from the applicant to verify whether there is an existing conflict with one of their hydro poles and the associated anchor to which it's tied down to. So with that being said, that's been conveyed to the applicant and they're currently working on providing that information. So ultimately, we are recommending to committee that the application be referred back to staff so that we can work with them and get that information so that can be brought back to committee at a later date.
Thank you again, Drew. That's information that is very vital. So any comments from the public or the person with the application? If not, I'll go to the committee. Any comments from the committee? So Drew, you read the minor variance application? You read it? Yeah, so
Co-chair,
yes.
sorry, we do have a member of the public that's raised their hands. I'll go ahead and let them join the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll just wait till she gets online, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I didn't know if I was actually participating or not, but anyway, I do have questions that I've submitted about this particular application, but since it's being deferred, I'll just wait to hear about whenever the next meeting is.
Well, thank you, Maureen. I appreciate that. And
Okay.
we'll carry on with our committee.
All right.
Thank you. I gotta move on second.
I don't know
So
how long-
I'm gonna need a mover and seconder for the motion. So moved by Sam and seconded by Stacy. Any questions? Say none. I'll call a question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So that's 2, and we're down to E3 minor variance application 11455 Ramsey concession 8. Drew, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to share my screen. And again, if someone wouldn't mind, give me a thumbs up when they can see that. Be greatly appreciated. Perfect. Thank you. So the subject application is D13-DRU-26, and the subject property is 1455 Ramsey Concession 8. The applicant is requesting relief from the zoning bylaw to legalize the existing use, placement, and number of accessory buildings on the subject property. So specifically, whereas the zoning bylaw table 6.1A sub 7 requires that the maximum number of accessory buildings in the RU zone be 3, the applicant is proposing 7. Whereas table 6.1A sub 9 requires a minimum setback between buildings of 1.2 meters, the applicant is proposing 0 meters. And whereas section 8.11 sub 1 sub C requires that the maximum gross floor area of a rural home-based business within an accessory building be 100 square meters, the applicant is proposing 335 square meters. Here we can see the subject property outlined on the screen in blue. It has frontage on both Ramsey Concession 8 and 7A, and is approximately 41 hectares in size, which is over 100 acres. All existing development on the subject property is centrally clustered, approximately 660-meter setback from either of the road frontages. The subject property is zoned rural, RU, and is generally surrounded by rural and rural residential land uses. As a part of this application, no new development is being proposed. As I said, they're attempting to legalize an existing situation on the property. Specifically, there are 8 existing accessory buildings on the subject property. The applicant is proposing to remove one of these buildings outright, proposing to leave 7 as a result of this variance application. 4 of those existing accessory buildings are used in connection with a home moving business, which the zoning bylaw considers to be a home-based rural business. Just for absolute clarity, when I say home moving business, it's not someone moving from one home to another, it's physically moving one home to another location. So the image on the right just gives us a sense of the type of operation associated with this home-based business. But with that being said, the actual activities on the property are very limited, specifically just to the storage or maintenance of the vehicles and equipment used in the business. And there's no employees or customers on site associated with the business. Outside of the 4 accessory buildings used for the business, the remaining are used for residential storage in connection with the existing dwelling. Here we can see a key map on the left. This is a zoomed in look on the aerial, which kind of shows us the clustered development in the middle of the property. I do want to key in on images 2, 3, and 4, because this is generally where the business operates. It consists of a workshop with a lean-to where you can see vehicles are able to be parked. Image 4 shows an office, and then, pardon me, image 3 shows an office, and then image 4 shows an unmarked storage container on the site plan that's used for storage in connection with the business. It's important to note here that both the office and the storage container have a 0 setback to the workshop. So these ones are the ones specific to the request to reduce that 1.2 meter setback to 0. With that being said, upon doing a site inspection in association with this minor variance application, these 3 buildings are actually interconnected. So they have internal accesses that allow you to move from one to another without actually having to go outside of the building. And I'll just give a little bit more detail on that as we go through the presentation. Here we can see, again, the zoomed in site plan, so not the entire site, but just the area where development has occurred. I just do want to key in again that there is an additional building here at the rear of building 2, being the storage container. In accordance with the Act, we did circulate this application both internally and to external commenting agencies. Our Deputy Chief Building Official advised that a number of these buildings on the property were built without a building permit. So he's recommending, should committee issue approval, that a condition be associated requiring that permits be granted. I do want to key in again on these 3 buildings, being the workshop, the office, and the storage container, because all 3 of these are included in that category of being built without a building permit. At time of building permit submission, there's a requirement to do a spatial analysis to determine whether buildings can be placed in relation to one another and what setback distances are required. This is typically related to life safety and measured through limiting distances based on unprotected openings. But based on an analysis, it could be determined that these accessory structures could be located as close as they are to one another. And on top of that, that they are in fact one building as opposed to separate accessory buildings just located close to one another. But conversely, through the analysis, it might be determined that they are in fact distinct from one another and have to be relocated. And in such case, the 0 meter setback wouldn't be appropriate. So essentially what I'm just trying to convey is that depending on the situation, either these are all one building and the setback requirement between accessory buildings wouldn't apply because they're all one, or they are separate accessory buildings, and it wouldn't be appropriate to have a 0 meter setback between them. That's all going to be determined at the building permit submission. So with that, with all minor variance applications, we assess them according to the tests outlined in the Planning Act. Staff are generally of the opinion that the variances do pass all 4 tests, with the exception of that 0 meter setback between the accessory buildings, as if they are in fact distinct accessory buildings, it's not appropriate to have a 0 meter setback between them, given that the intent of the zoning bylaws to be able to maintain and upheld life safety matters. So with that, staff have 2 recommendations for committee. The first being that the municipality of Mississippi Mills Committee of Adjustment refused the minor variance request to table 6.1A sub 9 of the zoning bylaw number 11-83 for the requested reduction in the minimum setback between buildings from 1.2 meters to 0.0 meters, affecting the subject lands which are legally described as concession 7, north part of lot 12, Ramsey Ward, Municipality of Mississippi Mills, municipally known as 1455 Ramsey Concession 8. And the second being that that the Municipality of Mississippi Mills Committee of Adjustment approved the minor variance application affecting the subject lands which are legally described as concession 7, north part of lot 12, Ramsey Ward, Municipality of Mississippi Mills, municipally known as 1455 Ramsey Concession 8, to legalize the number of accessory buildings on the subject property and their related and their use related to a home-based rural business, subject to the following conditions: that the following requested minor variance to zoning bylaw number 11-83 is approved to permit the 7 existing accessory buildings on the subject property denoted as buildings 2 through 7 on attachment A, and 1 unmarked storage container, whereas table 6.1A sub 7 requires the maximum number of accessory buildings to be 3 in the RU zone. To permit a cumulative gross floor area of 335 square meters within the existing accessory buildings on the subject property denoted as Building 2, Building 4, and Building 5 on attachment A, and the 1 unmarked storage container to be used in connection with a home-based rural business, whereas section 8.11 sub 1 sub C requires that no more than 100 square meters of an accessory building may be used as a home-based business. 2, that the owners obtain all required building permit and approvals within 2 years of the decision coming into full force and effect. And I will just make one more quick note. The way that this recommended motion has been crafted is to reflect the existing accessory buildings on the subject property. So using that example that I gave in terms of when there's a spatial analysis being done to determine whether these buildings are in fact one building or distinct buildings, the approved variance would only affect what is existing. So in the case that the number of accessory buildings actually decreases because they've been combined into one, that wouldn't afford the owner the right to bring in more accessory buildings that are not currently on the property. So it just gives them additional flexibility depending on the case of the building permit submission to relocate those accessory buildings should it be required through that process. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Drew. First, I'll go to the public to see if there's any members of the public or the applicant on the line wants to speak to this. Was anybody registered, Drew, for this?
We did not receive any requests to speak, and I will clarify that we did not receive any written comments from the public in advance of this meeting.
All I can say is I'm glad he's not my neighbor. Anyways, so is there a mover and seconder for these 2 motions? Moved by Stacy and seconded by Sam. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And we're down to E4 Bellamy Mills Road, 1091. And who's doing this? Natalie. Nadia. She working?
I just want to confirm that you can see my screen. Awesome. So I'll be doing the next minor variance application, D13CLA26, and this is for 1091 Bellamy Mills Road. The applicant is proposing to construct a new principal dwelling with the existing dwelling on the subject property to serve as an additional residential unit. The applicant is seeking relief to the provisions outlined in the zoning bylaw section 8.16 sub 3 or sub 3 sub D, sorry, where the maximum permitted gross floor area of the ARU is equal to 73% of the principal dwelling, whereas the maximum permitted gross floor area is 40% of the principal dwelling. The subject property is designated and zoned rural. It is approximately 36 hectares in size, with around 305 meters of frontage on Bellamy Mills Road. It features an existing single detached dwelling, an equestrian riding arena with stables, a detached garage, and a drive shed. The property is generally surrounded by rural, residential, and agricultural land uses. And it's also important to note that there is an additional livestock facility to the northwest of the property across the street. For this development, there's a site plan seen on the left side or the right side of the screen, where they will be proposing to construct a new dwelling to the east side of the drive shed, as seen in pink. The new principal dwelling is proposed to have a gross floor area of approximately 185 square meters, whereas the existing dwelling is 135 square meters. Since this new dwelling will be larger than the existing dwelling, the new proposed dwelling will be considered the principal dwelling, and then the existing current dwelling will be converted to an ARU. Both dwellings will be sharing a well, but will have separate septic systems. There will be no new entrance on Bellamy Mills Road for this development. And staff would also like to note that a minimum distance separation calculation is required for this new development as part of the building permit process, and it will be between the new dwelling and with any other livestock facilities on neighboring properties. Staff are of the opinion that the minor variance application does meet the 4 tests outlined in the Planning Act. And here are the staff recommendations and conditions. That is the end of my presentation.
And I'll read this motion. So I got a motion that reads as follows: that the Municipality of Mississippi Mills Committee of Adjustments approve the minor variance application affecting the subject lands which are legally described as concession east part of lot 6, Ramsey Ward, Municipality of Mississippi Mills, municipally known as 834 and 884 Old Perth Road to permit the future development of residential use subject to the following conditions.
Hi, excuse me,
Yes.
Chair.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong one.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm on the last one, E5. The municipal, sorry about that, I'll start again. Because I wasn't looking at the screen, I was reading through the thing. The Municipality of Mississippi Mills Committee of Adjustments approved the minor variance application affecting the subject lands which are legally described as concession 2 east part lot of 23 Ramsey Ward, Municipality of Mississippi Mills, municipally known as 1091 Bellamy Mills Road, to permit the development of a new municipality, a new principal dwelling on the subject property, which the existing detached dwelling to be converted to an additional residential unit subject to the following conditions. The following requested minor variance to zoning bylaw number 1183 is approved. To permit an additional residential unit that is 73% the gross floor area of the principal dwelling unit, whereas section 816(3)(d) of the zoning bylaw number 1183 requires an additional residential unit to be no more than 40% the gross floor area of the principal dwelling unit. And 2, the owner shall obtain all required building permits and approvals within 2 years of the decision committee coming into full force in effect. Is there a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Moved by Stacy and second by Sam. Anybody wanna, for the members of the public wanna discuss this, or anybody registered, Drew? Nobody's registered, so I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we're down to number 5. Minor variance D 13 BIT 26 834 and 884 Old Perth Road. And Gillian's gonna present on this one.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, screen 2. Okay, looking good? Okay, thank you. Okay, so this application is for 834 and 884 Old Perth Road, application number D13 BIT 26. So this application is to provide relief from section 6.23 subsection 1C of the zoning bylaw. And this section relates to setbacks from aggregate resources and the setbacks from sensitive land uses, which are like dwellings and residential uses. So the bylaw requirement for the MR zone, which is the mineral aggregate resource, the pit reserve zone, the requirement is 300 meters and the applicant is requesting a reduced setback of 50 meters. So here's the subject property. It's still one lot currently. It's approximately 15 hectares with frontage on Old Perth Road and Forest Road. It's zoned rural. It's currently vacant with woodlands and an area that's cleared to the north. And this is where the separate lot is proposed. There's also wetlands to the east of the property, and it's surrounded by some agricultural uses, rural uses, and residential uses as well. Again, there's no development currently proposed for this application. This is because it's a condition of a consent to sever application. So in order to permit development in the future, they have to have this, they have to apply for this minor variance to reduce that mineral reserve setback. And so development will occur in the future, but at this time, it's just for the consent to sever application. So this slide's a bit busy, but we'll get through it. So this is talking about the zoning. So in the middle here is the MR, which is the Mineral Aggregate Pit Reserve Zone. And this zone is there because sorry, lost my train of thought. So we've got, yes, the MR zone, and there's also the mineral aggregate pit zone as well at the bottom, which I'll touch on in a second. And then the blue is the 300-meter buffer that's required for this MR zone. And reductions to this zone are permitted through an application to the Committee of Adjustment. And it's based on the reductions permitted if the resource would not be feasible, if the proposed land use serves a greater long-term interest, or issues of public health, public safety, and environmental impact are addressed. And for the mineral aggregate pit zone, this has a minimum 150-meter setback from licensed pits, but there's no licensed pit on this property, so the setback is not required in this case. So we're just looking at the setback from the MR zone. And just to touch on the mineral aggregate resources a little bit more, so we did reach out to the Ontario Ministry of Energy and Mines, and they confirmed that there's no significant resource here. It was an old pit a long time ago, but it's not currently licensed, and there's no significant resources to be extracted here. And as well, the county, Lanark County, is going through Official Plan Amendment 18 to amend their mineral aggregate resources master plan. And through this process, once OPA 18 is adopted, many of these resources, which are identified as what's called tertiary resources, will be removed from the mapping. So this map is from the county's official plan amendment. And as you can see, there's the little yellows are those tertiary resources, and there's nothing over where this MR zone is. We did receive, so we did receive comments. So the first comment is from the Ministry of Energy and Mines, just confirming, what kind of rocks are in the area, and that they don't have record of abandoned mines, and they have no concerns regarding the subject application. And we did receive one comment from a member of the public, the neighbor who has the MR zone on their property, and they were in support of the application. They had no concerns there. So staff are of the opinion that this application meets the 4 tests for evaluating a minor variance. And I have the recommendations on this page. I can go ahead and read them. I did want to note for the second one, we're not requiring building permits because there's no development proposed at this time. It's just to satisfy a condition of consent. So I can go ahead and read this. So that the Municipality of Mississippi Mills Committee of Adjustment, excuse me, approved the minor variance application affecting the subject lands, which are legally described as Concession 1, east part of Lot 6, Ramsey Ward, Municipality of Mississippi Mills, municipally known as 834 and 884 Old Perth Road, to permit the future development of residential uses, subject to the following conditions. That the following requested minor variance to zoning bylaw 11-83 is approved to permit residential uses with a setback of 50 meters from the aggregate resource pit reserve MR zone, whereas section 6.23 subsection 1C of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum sensitive land use setback of 300 meters from the MR zone, and 2, that the owners obtain all required approvals within 2 years of the decision coming into full force and effect. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Gillian. Any members of the public or the applicant want to online want to speak? I don't see any, so any questions from the committee? I think it's pretty straightforward. So is there could I have a mover and seconder then, please? Moved by Stacy and seconded by Samantha. Any questions or comments? Say none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, and that's approved. No other new business, and meeting announcements. The next committee meeting is for June 17th, 2026. So we'll see everybody there, I guess. Either online or in person, it doesn't matter. So, thank you. Could I have a mover? And on that note, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Mover and seconder. All in favor? Bob, thank you. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.